Welcome to another 10-minute review. So today we have an Unreal shot by Quentin Tireloque. So he has done his animations, created them, he has implemented them in Engine, and created the logic for them, which is very impressive to say the least. So we're going to have a look at them, and I'm going to actually talk through the animation work, but also the logic behind it. So hopefully it gives you guys a bit of an understanding of some of the things that goes behind the scenes in games while we look at animation in game. So without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome if you guys are new to this channel. My name is Harvey Newman. I have been working in games for 20 plus years, and most specifically in animation. I like to share my passion for animation here in this channel, and this specifically is a 10-minute animation review that basically goes through the motions on how to actually get your animations to be better. If you guys like what you see, consider joining my Discord channel, because this is where we actually take all these animations from. There's an animation feedback channel. Up and coming animators and experienced animators share their work, and then we give feedback, and then I pick on one or two every week so I can actually do these things for you guys. So we have a timer, 10 minutes on the clock. Let's have a look at Quentin's work. Really cool. This actually reminds me a lot of a VR game called Moss. Really cool. Shout out to Tireloque, because he is the head animator for that project, and the animations look absolutely stunning. But this work by Quentin is really cool. The fact that he actually had to create the animations and also create animation logic and implementation is very impressive. It's really cool. So like basically overall, Quentin, I really like your work overall. There's very little kind of like details and additions that I like to add, because this works well just as it is. So you've done a really good job. So I'm going to talk through basically some animation polish and also some animation logic changes that you might actually want to add to this to make sure that it looks really cool. So I think that the things that I like is whenever you start running or walking, you have like a little sprint, right? So you have like a regular walk, or like a regular run, I should say. And then you also have, I'm guessing you mapping this to another button, which is like this extra sprint whenever you go to a specific area or place, which is nice. I like also what you're doing with your sword. The sword looks cool. It never intersects with the floor. There's a sense of like quickness to it all. The sword never feels like a hindrance of it all, which is really nice. I really like this. I like how you actually kind of like making sure that the character is slightly forward when they're running, which is nice. Now, what I would say is that when the character is in slower movement, like here, right? I think the character kind of like leans forward slightly too much. See that? You kind of just like, it feels like slightly too much. You might want to have more a gating between your transitions and between your states, your animation states, to make sure that you have, if you go slow like this, maybe you have like less of a jerk forward. See that? Like there's a little bit of a stop, especially when he stops like there. See that point? So that can actually be slightly more smooth. And specifically when it comes to the limbs, right here, the arms, how they actually go back, that might actually be better if you actually get it a little bit less, like less of a hard break. Also, whenever you're actually running forward right here, this looks really cool. Something else that you might consider adding is adding a variation to this run right here, right? Because at the moment when he runs, he has both hands on the weapon as he goes through it, and it feels almost like he's getting ready to attack all the time. So what I would say is that it would be awesome to have one version where he's like same distance that you're covering, same animation in a way, but he has a version where he's just holding the sword with both hands separated. And then you have a version, if you have an enemy, let's say it's this statue here on the right, where he actually puts the hands together so he's ready to attack, because it feels more like an anticipation run than actually a like a relaxed run, right? So you probably know this already given the status of the implementations here, but most games have almost like two different states. So you have a combat state and then you have a relaxed state, and that relaxed state normally has roughly the same animations. There's obviously more animations in combat, But the whole idea here is that when you're walking around, when you're doing your thing, you want to make sure that you have a mode where you are not ready for battle, right? And this is basically the mode that I'm talking about here, because he has his sword all the time out. Obviously, ideally, it would be good to actually kind of like stow your sword if there's no action. That's the ideal world, but that is going to make you have to do a bunch of other animations. So you can leave the sword out, no problem, because you run around with the sword, no problem. But maybe have like a relaxed state, like same run, but he's just like doing this kind of stuff, right? Which is cool. Now the double jump here, the jumping double jump, point, that looks really cool. I like how when he hits the apex, as soon as he hits the apex, he's just like immediately like does the pirouette here, or like the turnaround, which is nice. Also, when he goes off the ledge right here, there's a little bit of a momentum going, and then jumps and then double jump, which is really nice. Also, I like how you are directing things. You can steer your jump as you are double jumping. This is something super essential, especially for a platformer. I'm guessing here you're going for a platformer, given how you have these little pillars here. You need that sense of direction when you're jumping, so you can readjust your character before you fall into a specific ledge. This is kind of, you can adjust your how far you can go when you jump, which is cool. So I can see here that you have a run that basically like has both hands like separated. That's kind of like what I'm hinting at with that sprint. Maybe this is maybe more of a sprint over here. Yeah, this is more of a sprint. So having that kind of speed, this speed here of the sprint right here, but similar to this, I think will probably be a useful thing. And then here is almost the inverse, right? It would be great to have this, I guess this is a run because of the speed that he's going to, having a run where he can run with both hands on the sword as well. So this could be just a relaxed out of combat pose or run where he's just like running like this, and then having a version where he's actually running but he has a sword like this, so he's ready to swing the sword whenever he's ready for action. So I like the swinging. The swinging is really cool. And then here is not so much in the logic that I have comments, it's more on the animation. So when you actually are like swinging your sword, and it's like unfortunately I'm actually using Vimeo, so I cannot like skip frames, but there's a sense of floatiness to the animations at this point, and that is because like he's swinging, he's jumping, he's swinging, and before he hits the floor, he's basically going back to idle. So it feels like he's doing most of the movement in air right there. See that? So I would say in order for you to sell weight of that character, try to keep the character more planted. So the jump's still cool, so no problem. So you can still jump, but make sure that the sword swing happens whenever he hits the floor and swings, right? So it's almost like you are here, you are jumping, and then you kind of go and then swing, right? So you have a sense of like, I'm planted and therefore I can swing that sword. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the sword is so big in comparison to him, right? Like the sword is bigger than him. Because it's so big, you should have a certain heft to it, right? He should have a certain weight to it. And at the moment, even though he's speedy and he's really cool, and maybe the sword is made of aluminium, but I think you should have that sense of weight. Otherwise, it feels slightly too floaty. And at the moment, you're losing that sense of weight because he's actually like hopping and swinging and staying a lot of the time in air, right? So if you can swap those in-air moves to basically have more of that like planted and swing, works really well. So you have it a little bit better here towards the end. So right at the last hit, when he actually goes swing, hit, right? This one here feels much better because he just hits the floor just before he starts to swing, and is maybe a frame or two, but it feels already better than the stuff that you have here when he's actually swinging, right? There's no sense of being planted when you are swinging that sword. But I like the combo that you have going on, like the difference that you have going on between having a two-handed sword and single-handed, because you have some attacks with one hand, some attacks with both hands. That mix is really nice, and the fact that you can reorient your character as you're swinging that sword helps you a ton as well, which is nice. Really, really cool. And I like how your idle is actually a breathing idle. Feels good. So you have, I guess you have like a relaxed idle, and then you have like a out of combat idle. which are very different from each other. Really, really nice. So all the overlapping action that you're doing with the ears, I'm assuming that is actually like automatic, and you're using some kind of spring to actually get those ears to kind of flop around. That looks really nice. That sense of like speed with the sword looks really nice. The best combination that you have, I think, in my eyes, is how you go from like walk to sprint. Like you have like the little hop quick, and then quick, and then run, and then turn around, which is nice. Something else that you might consider adding to the whole animation is a sense of like looking, right? So one of the things that I like the most to do in a game, especially as we start getting the animations in engine and starting the animations to get to look like this, is adding a look at controller to your character. So before you turn around, before you direct things, at the moment you can see here the head and the body are all moving at the same speed. So you have a sense that the character is stiff, so he's kind of like going like this, like, you know, all together. So you might want one actually to have a look at where if you actually turn left as you're moving the stick, the head is kind of moving before the body, and it can be just 1 or 2 frames, but just having that sense of like going like this and then turning the body helps you a ton to make sure that the character is thinking. Because as much as possible, you want to make sure that the character is thinking. And when you have a sense, when you have an enemy specifically, and the enemies are around you, in front of you, sideways or whatever, especially as you see him, and if you have your logic saying this is an enemy, you need to attack it, as soon as you get close to the enemy, get the character, even if you're running this way, get the character to look at the enemy as they are running, because it gives the player a sense that you need to go over here and attack this enemy. But yeah, I'll stop it there. Having too much fun. But Quentin, you did an amazing job. Like really cool. Like I'm just nitpicking. Overall, your logic, your animations, the whole structure that you have for your shot works incredibly well. So you've done an amazing job. And you're definitely on that line. I mentioned to you this before. You're on that line between animation and technical animation. And it's very cool to see. For those that don't know, a lot of the times in most studios you have an animator that makes the animations, and you have somebody else that does the technical implementation of the animations, which is called a technical animator. And Quentin is doing 2 jobs in one, in a way, which is very impressive for anybody that he decides to work for, because it gives you a better understanding of what goes behind the scenes in games as you become a gameplay animator. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this was useful to you. If it was, consider liking, subscribing, and also drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of Quentin's work. And as mentioned before, if you like your shot reviewed just like I did this one, consider joining my Discord server, because we have a bunch of people there. We now crossed the 1,000 people milestone, and we're having lots of fun. So consider joining, submit your work, and then, you know, I'll pick an animation in the future, and hopefully your animation can be featured here in this channel, just like Quentin. That's all I had for you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and until next week, stay well, stay safe, peace.